So, some tips and tricks on writing to databases.
Yeah, so this is sort of the usual standard stuff. Use a unique key field as much as possible. Databases like unique key fields. If Mark can open up one of his workspaces that's actually reading from a SQL Server table, we've now added the ability to index that key field in the writer. So one of the options on a writer, if you go back to that workspace you were just in and open those up and look at the user attributes, you'll notice that the index there has got a whole lot of new options on it. So not only can you set a primary key, but you can also set clustered not null or unique not index not null, etc.,
That's only
etc.
happening if you're creating the table.
Creating the table, yes.
Yeah.
In Mark's case, where he'd already created the tables, none of that would take any effect. Stay there for a minute. So another new option in FME 2013 with SQL Server was the bulk insert. So over on the navigator pane, bulk insert has the option of being set to yes or no. And this allows you to write, it's a different method of writing. So instead of writing one record at a time, it stores them all up and then bulk copies them into your database.
And it is only for inserting, not for incremental updates.
That's right. You'll see that there would have been a warning in Mark's log file saying that because you had update mode on, it was going to ignore the bulk insert. So we don't mind it being set to yes, but we will ignore it if you're in the update mode. What we've found with that bulk insert is that if you're writing to SQL Azure, so the cloud formats, it makes a huge difference to performance, anywhere from 10 times faster if you're using that bulk insert mode. So also in sort of that kind of area is the transactioning. We have transactioning on all our database writers, and so the one for SQL Server, we set a transaction amount by default to about 500 features, and what that means is that we won't do a commit until after those 500 features have been written to the database. That bulk insert also takes notice of that transaction interval, so it's going to work on 500 feature clusters and copy them into the database in that kind of volume. If you're worried about committing and rolling back, there's a couple of things you can do. You can set your transaction interval down to 1, and that means that we will commit on every feature, so that then if you run into a feature that won't go in, it'll just roll back that one feature. However, if you're looking to do a commit or a rollback of the entire process, then we set that transaction interval to a very large number so that we commit at the end of the entire process. A couple of other things to be aware of with that is that that commit block is only around the writer. So if you are trying to do a bit of fancy stuff in a SQL executor and you're actually modifying the database in there and then doing stuff in a writer, that's two different transactions. If you want to be able to manage your transactions with rollbacks, you need to be doing everything in the writer. So along with that comes some performance stuff. Most of you are database gurus, so this is pretty standard stuff, but make the database do the work. We've got a number of transformers that can work with databases, but if you can do where clauses on your readers or spatial envelopes on your readers to reduce down the amount of data that you're bringing into the workspace.
Or joins, you can add joins and selects in the reader or through SQL executors.
Yes, all of that makes the database do the work where it's optimized, in its native environment for doing that kind of stuff. Indexes, attribute indexing is now available, so you can index all those attributes. And in FME 2013, with SQL Server 2012, we can help you build a spatial index. It used to be very difficult with SQL Server 2008. Actually, can you bring back your workspace, Mark, and I'll show the option on that writer. There's a new format parameter on the writer over here on the destination dataset, because of course it's set on each particular destination dataset. So here we have a spatial index type, and you can ask for none or do it manually. If you decide you want to manually create the index, it opens up a SQL text box here that you can put your SQL statement into. If you're working with SQL Server 2008, this is how you need to do it still. Either do it manually or say that you aren't going to build an index. For SQL Server 2012, you can ask us to automatically build the index, and then provide it with a bounding box that it can use to make that index out of. So if you're building the table, as opposed to how Mark did it by pre-building them, all that capability is available in your writer.